History, as we know it, is a story told by the victors, a narrative carefully curated and passed down through generations. But what about the stories that were lost, the myths and legends deliberately erased, suppressed by empires, religions, and shifting cultural tides? Today, we're journeying into the shadows of the past to uncover some of these forgotten tales, myths that were deemed too dangerous, too heretical, or too inconvenient to survive. These aren't just stories, they're echoes of worlds and beliefs that were intentionally silenced. Our first stop is ancient Egypt, a civilization famous for its pantheon of gods. But there's a period that many pharaohs try to scrub from the records, the Amarna period. For a brief, revolutionary time, the Pharaoh Akhenaten declared that all the old gods were false. There was only one true deity, the Aten, the disk of the sun. He moved to the capital, to a new city, Akhenaten, and systematically defaced monuments dedicated to the old gods, especially the powerful god, Amun-Ra. Imagine the social upheaval. Temples were closed, priests lost their power, and an entire religious system, thousands of years old, was dismantled. This was a radical monotheistic experiment. But after Akhenaten's death, it all came crashing down. His successors, including the famous Tutankhamun, launched a counter-reformation. They restored the old gods, abandoned Akhenaten, and, most importantly, embarked on a campaign to erase Akhenaten from history. His name was chiseled off monuments. His statues were smashed, and he was referred to in later records simply as the enemy or that criminal. For centuries, it was as if he and his one-god revolution never existed, a myth intentionally buried under the sands of time until modern archaeology brought his story back to light. Next, we travel to the heart of the Roman Empire, a place where countless cultures and their beliefs converged. As Christianity rose to become the state religion in the 4th century AD, it didn't just coexist with the old pagan faiths, it actively sought to replace them. This wasn't just a quiet transition, it was a systematic process of erasure. Emperor Theodosius I, for instance, issued decrees that closed pagan temples across the empire. The eternal flame of Vesta in the Roman Forum, which had burned for over 1,000 years, was extinguished. Sacred groves were cut down, and statues of gods like Jupiter, Apollo, and Venus were toppled and destroyed. But it went deeper than just physical destruction. The stories themselves were targeted. Christian writers and apologists like Augustine of Hippo reframed pagan myths as demonic deceptions or foolish fables. The rich, complex narratives of Greco-Roman mythology, which had formed the bedrock of Western culture, were recontextualized as the ignorant worship of false idols. This process, known as syncretism, also saw pagan holidays and figures absorbed and rebranded. The festival of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, celebrated around the winter solstice, was conveniently close to the date chosen for Christmas. Many local deities and spirits were transformed into Christian saints. The old myths weren't just forgotten. They were overwritten, their original meanings and power intentionally diluted and reshaped to fit a new world order. Now, let's explore the world of the Gnostics, a diverse group of early Christian sects with a radically different interpretation of the Bible. While Orthodox Christianity was solidifying its doctrines, the Gnostics offered a competing mythology, one that was ultimately declared heretical and ruthlessly suppressed. Their core myth was fascinating. They believed the material world was not created by a benevolent god, but by a lesser, flawed deity called the Demiurge. This Demiurge, often identified with the God of the Old Testament, was seen as ignorant or even malevolent, trapping divine sparks of light our souls within physical bodies. True salvation wasn't about faith or good works, but about gnosis, a secret, esoteric knowledge that could awaken the divine spark within and allow it to escape the material prison. Imagine a version of the Garden of Eden, where the serpent is the hero. For some Gnostics, the serpent wasn't a tempter, but a liberator, offering Adam and Eve the knowledge the Demiurge was trying to hide from them. These ideas were a direct threat to the authority of the burgeoning church. Gnostic texts, which included alternative gospels like the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, were systematically hunted down and burned. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD was a pivotal moment in standardizing Christian doctrine, effectively outlawing Gnostic beliefs. For over 1500 years, all we knew of Gnosticism came from the polemical attacks written by its enemies. It was a mythology deliberately silenced until the miraculous discovery of a hidden library of Gnostic texts at Nag Hammadi, Egypt, in 1945. These clay jars held the stories the victors tried to erase, revealing a vibrant and complex spiritual world that was almost lost forever. Let's cross the Atlantic to the Americas, where the arrival of European conquistadors in the 15th and 16th centuries triggered not just a demographic catastrophe, but a cultural one. The Aztec and Inca empires had rich, intricate mythologies that were deeply woven into the fabric of their societies. The Aztecs, for example, believed in a cyclical universe of creation and destruction, with gods like Huitzilopochtli, the god of sun and war, demanding human sacrifice to keep the sun moving across the earth. The Incas worshipped Inti, the sun god, and believed their emperor was his living descendant. These were not simply stories, they were the operating systems of entire civilizations. The Spanish, driven by a quest for gold and a fervent Catholic zeal, saw these beliefs as devil worship. The conquest was both military and spiritual. In places like the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, temples were raised and churches were built directly on top of their foundations, a powerful symbol of replacement. Spanish friars, like Diego de Landa in the Yucatan, famously collected and burned hundreds of Maya codices, ancient books containing their history, astronomy, and mythology, calling them superstitions and lies of the devil. Only 4 of these precious codices are known to have survived. This was a deliberate, calculated campaign to sever indigenous peoples from their ancestral heritage, to break their spirit by destroying their sacred stories. While many myths survived through oral tradition, often syncretized with Christian elements, an immeasurable wealth of knowledge and belief was purposefully turned to ash. Our final journey takes us to Northern Europe, to the world of the Norse and other Germanic peoples. The stories of Odin, Thor, Loki, and Ragnarok are popular today, but we often forget that what we know comes from a very narrow and late set of sources, primarily written down in Iceland centuries after the rest of Europe had converted to Christianity, in mainland Scandinavia, Germany, and England. The conversion process involved a similar pattern of suppression. The Christian missionaries who arrived saw the Norse gods as demons. Charlemagne, the powerful Frankish king, forcibly converted the Saxons in the 8th century, and part of this involved destroying their sacred pillars and groves, like the Irminsul, a pillar believed to connect heaven and earth. The myths themselves were Odin, the seeker of wisdom and magic, was demonized. The magical female figures of Norse mythology, the Vavlur or Ceressus, were condemned as witches. We have glimpses of the lost myths in fragmented sources. For example, the god Tyr was once a chief sky god, equivalent to Zeus or Jupiter, before being overshadowed by Odin. His original mythology is almost completely gone. The stories that survived in Iceland, written by scholars like were recorded from a Christian perspective. Looking back on a dead faith, we have to wonder what these myths looked like before they were filtered. What rich variations and powerful beliefs were deliberately uprooted and paved over by the new religion. From Akhenaten's singular sun god to the secret knowledge of the Gnostics, from the burned codices of the Americas to the forgotten gods of Europe, history is haunted by the ghosts of arrested myth. These stories weren't just whimsical tales, they were the truths by which entire cultures lived and died. Their suppression was an act of power, a way to control the present by rewriting the past. By digging for these buried narratives, we don't just learn about history, we get a more honest picture of humanity's diverse and often conflicting search for meaning. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the shadows of history. If you found these forgotten stories as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into the past, and let me know in the comments which erased myth you find most compelling. See you next time.